And let's get to his question first. He says, wondering if you can help me. My 6-year-old daughter has been very inquisitive about Yeshua and asks questions about why is Yeshua praying to God when he is God. I've tried to make several attempts to explain the Trinity and at her age level, but find that I can't. Most attempts that I make, Candace will stop me as I'm inadvertently going down a path of modalism. Laugh out loud. Okay, this has been a very difficult thing for me as well. Now, it's hard for me to know whether or not my son, Ben, is above the curve when it comes to theology or not. Oh, and Ernest says she was with Lou for 63 years. There you go. Okay. Yeah, it's hard for me to know if Ben is on the same level or if he's like, I've called him a theological savant. Actually, Steve Lawson, when he heard some of the questions that Ben was asking, was kind of shocked and told me to just study through the book of John with him. With that said, I think that this is so. We as parents have to kind of become theologians to be able to not only explain to our children what's going on in the Bible, but also to be able to understand it ourselves. One of the doctrines that the early church fathers first really hit on was the idea of Yeshua's nature. Whether or not Yeshua had a divine nature or whether or not he had a human nature. And if we look at this in tandem with Philippians 2 and the idea that he did not find it necessary to retain his position with God, but lowered himself and came in the form of a servant. And then we look and then we think of this idea of Yeshua having two natures. What the church fathers came to, and Rob, jump in at any time, please. What the church fathers came to was that Yeshua actually has two natures. He has a truly human nature, and at the same time, coexisting, but never the two shall meet, we might say, is a human nature. So a divine nature and a human nature. The divine nature he shares with the Father. And yet, at the same time, he has a human nature, and this he took on when he came in the form of a servant. When we think of this, now all of a sudden we can see how Yeshua can say things like, not your will, but my will be done, or not my will, but your will be done, because this is him in his human state with a human nature, acting as a human, and acting as we act in terms
fully human.
Fully human.
Yeah, not like the Docetists, right, who say he seemed like he was. No, right. That's the other part of the conversation. Keep going. You're nailing it, dude. Get a sip though. Refresh that palate.
Yes, but now we can see it, he experienced life just as we experience life, because he is truly human, and so he has this human nature. And so basically, when we see Yeshua praying, when we see, these are all things that are not only, I mean, first of all, he had to pray, right? Because it is commanded. It's commanded in Scripture to pray. But also because he is one with the Father. And as someone who has now lowered himself and set aside, my son and I last night had a discussion on whether or not he gave up or whether or not he set aside his divine attributes. And so basically we have to say that he set aside some of his divine attributes, and because of this he I believe he has a human nature, and this is exactly why we see him praying. When it comes to
and Yeshua in the flesh is an intercessor.
Yes,
right. It says he ever lives to intercede for us. But you could look at, since we're in the Pesach Pentecost season, we can think, just recently reading about his praying for Peter, when Peter says, oh, I'll never leave you, I'll die with you, or whatever. And he's like, Satan has desired to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you. And you're going to, and when you've been restored, I'm totally paraphrasing, build up your brothers. So what's Peter learning about Yeshua in that moment? First of all, it's like Peter's getting a check on his own self-assessment of, you know, his own enthusiasm or zeal for the Lord. He's not really being sober-minded when he says, "Oh, I'll die with you," and Yeshua checks him on that. But then Yeshua says, "I've got you covered, man. You're mine. You're gonna, yes, this is true. This is gonna happen. But on the other side, you're gonna come back and you're gonna build up your brothers." And I was just reading that from the end of John, where he says, "Feed my, you know, do you love me? You know, feed my sheep," etc. That powerful moment. So we learn too, I think, about prayer and how important prayer is for us as disciples of Yeshua through Yeshua and his prayers.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.